Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are we getting on? So, at long last, the Steel Arena update for Fallout 76 has arrived. It should be live later this evening. For now, let's take a little look at the patch notes, go over all the key new features, and take a look at the massive bug fixes that are coming with this update. So, let's jump in. Okay then, so we have all of the new stuff for Steel Rain here in the patch notes today. The update is going live as we speak. The servers are down at the moment. Looking forward to jumping into that later on. So let's have a look at this awesome new stuff. So very, very cool new key art for the new update. Looking forward to that. So we have today's update includes the conclusion of the Brotherhood of Steel story, the ability to craft legendary items, a brand new season, bug fixes, and more. So, touching on the highlights, we have Steel Rain, Legendary Crafting, Season 5, Wallet upgrades, and a new vendor, Minerva. So, very, very cool. Let's get going. So, the Steel Rain questline brings all new quests to Fallout 76 with the Steel Rain questline, which picks up right where you left off with the Brotherhood of Steel at the end of Steel Dawn. So, it's been a long time coming, this one. I know a lot of us are crying out for some new story content. Looking forward to it. Questline is available to any player over level 20 who has completed the best defense. So that would be the end of the Steel Dawn questline where the super mutants attack Atlas. Finish that off. This picks up straight after that and pushes on with that story. And for now, it will complete the story of the Brotherhood of Steel. Obviously, the faction will remain in Appalachia after the story is complete, so they'll be interacting with future stories and stuff like that as well, I suspect. So we'll have to wait and see in the future for what that may be. But legendary crafting. So I think this is one of the things that I am most hyped for, and I think a lot of other people will be as well. Talked about it a fair few times, but we're implementing the legendary crafting system, which you can use to turn normal items into legendary ones, or re-roll your existing legendary items' attributes, and upgrade or downgrade their star ratings. So, using a new crafting component called Legendary Cores, along with a few legendary modules, you can now craft legendary upgrades. So visit weapon and armor benches and then open the modify menu to get started. You can earn legendary cores from seasonal events, public events, and daily ops. So plenty of opportunities to grab those. Looking forward to getting on with that. It'll give us something to work towards, at least in the short term. And I've got multiple characters, I suppose, so plenty to work to on there as well. So lots to be going on with this. It's quite a broad scope that this update ends up being with the legendary crafting. So it's going to be something to engage with for quite a while, I think. So legendary modules, as per usual, are still available from Purveyor Murmur in exchange for legendary script. So you've still got something worthwhile to use your unwanted legendaries on if you want to turn them in at train stations and stuff as usual. But for now, I think legendary crafting is the way to go. You will now be able to craft 1, 2, and 3-star legendary upgrades for your gear, and the materials required to craft them increase based on the legendary upgrade tier you choose, which is about what you'd expect, really. That makes sense. So, applying a legendary upgrade to a normal item will turn it into a legendary version of that item with 1, 2, or 3 randomly assigned attributes, depending on the tier you applied. So, applying a legendary upgrade to an existing legendary item, be that one you've crafted yourself or one you've picked up off an enemy, will increase or decrease the number of legendary attributes the item has, depending on the tier you apply. Or you can just reroll at the same tier if you so desire, in much the same way. So, legendary power armor. In addition to weapons and armor, legendary crafting can also be used to create pieces of legendary power armor. Like weapons and armor, legendary power armor pieces can also be upgraded, downgraded, and re-rolled. Visit any power armor station and do it the same way you do with weapons or regular armor. So the vast majority of legendary attributes that are available on normal armor can also be applied to power armor, with the following exceptions. So most of these are excluded because of basically duplication. So it reduces the pool of possible legendaries, meaning you've got better odds of getting the one you want if they've avoided doubling things up because you can get them in another way. And there's a couple of things in here that are removed basically because they'd be unbalanced and would end up enhancing the existing meta rather than spreading things out, so that wouldn't be great. So the exceptions are, on the 1-star tier, Auto Revive is a armor mod that will not appear on power armor. It gives you a chance to revive using a stim pack, and the reason that one's not going to appear is because there is a legendary perk that does the same thing, pretty much. So, rather than doubling up, as I say, gives you a smaller pool and still allows you to get the same result through a different avenue. So on the 3-star tiers, we have Acrobats that will not be there. That's reduced falling damage. Power Armor does that anyway. Improved Sneaking, which doesn't make a right lot of sense when you are running around in a big clanky tank suit. So that makes a lot of sense to not have that one. Divers grants underwater breathing. You won't be able to have that on Power Armor because it does this anyway. Unyielding. This is the one that I know has upset quite a few people, but it is the right decision, I think, here. And that is that will not be available, basically because Unyielding is particularly popular for bloodied builds. Bloodied builds are supposed to be high risk, high reward. If you can do all of the benefits of a bloodied build in Power Armor, then the risk part of the high risk, high reward kind of disappears, which will basically enhance that as a meta. So everybody's going to go for it because you can be really, really powerful with much less risk. And that's not really what they want. They want to open it up and give you more ways to play, not kind of shoehorning everybody into the same thing. And ultimately, it would just make that one build disproportionately more powerful than it already is. So I think the right decision there. Weightless reduces the carry weight of the item and so that it doesn't affect the Chameleon mutation. So Chameleon mutation is offset by being able to put the Stealth Boy effect on your Power Armor anyway. And the carry weight thing, well, Power Armor doesn't have carry weight in and of itself, except when it's in your inventory, in which case the Power Armor frame does most of this anyway by reducing it to a flat £10. So you kind of double effect up, and you don't really need that, so that one's out. And reduced limb damage, again, you don't get limb damage when you're in Power Armor. Technically, I think your Power Armor can, but sort of. But in a general sense, the player cannot receive limb damage, so they're taking this out because it won't do anything anyway. So, legendary balance changes. These are some new attributes and some changes to existing ones. So I'm going to go through this as quick as I can, but it is quite a long list. So they've revisited the lineup of legendary attributes to add some new ones and give a tune-up to a few that already existed. So, new ones. First and foremost, the exciting stuff. The first star attributes, we have Aristocrats, which does increased damage as you carry more caps. So you get a boost of up to 50% extra damage if you're over 29,000 caps. As a little heads up, we are also getting a cap limit increase from 30,000 to 40,000, so that window in which you can be at the maximum threshold is now larger, whereas it would have otherwise been 1,000, it's now 11,000 caps. So it gives you a little bit of wiggle room if you do want to spend a few here and there, without necessarily crippling your damage output, or, in the case of armor, your damage resistances. So, Juggernaut increases damage as health increases. So it's for those full health Vanguards builds. You can do up to 25% extra damage at 95% health or above. And of course, you can stack other buffs on there to increase that further, which technically you can do with the Aristocrats as well, which might make that a little OP. But from what I understand, contrary to the way it might appear to a lot of people, I know, the number of people sitting at max caps is not as high as you might think. So maybe there's something in there, but of course they'll see how it goes and test it out with an even larger pool than the PTS has, and maybe make some changes on down the line if they do feel it's too OP or ends up being a new meta. So we'll have to wait and see on that, but yeah, I'm a little concerned Aristocrats could be overpowered, but we'll see. Should be good nonetheless. I think it's the one that appeals to me the most because I do run around with a lot of caps a lot of the time. So, Gourmands is the one for those of you who like foodie builds and like to buff yourself up that way. Damage increases as you fill your hunger and thirst meters up to a maximum of plus 24% damage. Now, that number is too specific to be an accident, I think. It's a bit odd, but I guess it's influenced by other buffs and things like that. So, I'm guessing that brings things more into an even line by dropping the percentage back one compared to, say, Juggernauts. I don't know, but it's a very oddly specific number, so I think there must be a reason for that. Obviously, no details here, but we'll have to speculate, but I think that's probably the case. So, on the second star, we're getting a new attribute, Last Shot, so that the final round in a magazine has a 25% chance to deal twice as much damage. Does not apply to single-shot weapons like the black powder weapons. So if every shot is the last shot, you won't be able to get it. New attribute, Steady. So you get 25% extra damage when you're standing still. That will be a nice one to combine with some of the other attributes, particularly if you go for a stealthy sniper type build as well. That would definitely be a popular one, I think. And Inertial replenishes 15 action points with each kill, which is quite cool if you are a VATS build. On the final third star, we have Ghosts, which means attacks that hit enemies have a 10% chance to generate a stealth field. So this is the weapon equivalent of an existing armor mod. Obviously, if you get hit with the armor mod, it generates a stealth field that has a chance. This is if you hit them. So there we go. If you're a stealthy build, might be handy. new legendary armor and power armor attributes. We have the Aristocrat's equivalent for armor, which is energy and damage resistances, increasing as your caps increase, up to a maximum of 20 for each resistance at 29,000 caps. Overeaters, again, is the equivalent to the Gourmands. That's increasing your damage reduction up to 6% per piece, remember. So you can obviously have up to 5 pieces with this on, as you fill your hunger and thirst meters. So those will stack. 2-star, the 2nd star, we have Gluttons, which is hunger and thirst grows slower, which is, again, good for those foodie builds. You make those Gourmands and Overeaters effects last a little bit longer if you happen to get those on the same pieces of armor. This stacks up to a maximum of 50% for 5 pieces of armor. Fireproof gives you 25 fire resistance for each piece of armor. Warming, 25% cryo resistance. And Hardy is 10% less damage from explosions, which will make you even more invulnerable than Fireproof perk already does. And on the 3rd star, we have Doctors. So Stimpaks, Radaway, and Radix are 5% more effective, stacking up to 25% if you have a full set of that one. Probably not that useful, that one. Won't hurt if you got it, of course, but generally, I don't think that's going to be a particularly big deal. Burning, Electrified, Frozen, and Toxic have a 5% chance to deal the appropriate damage type, either fire, energy, cryo, or poison, to any melee attackers. And Dissipating means you slowly regenerate radiation damage when out of combat. So not one for those of you who go for bloody builds, but for high health builds, it's not a bad one to have. Shift that radiation damage as you go, especially if you've got the healing mutation that heals you when you're out of combat. So your radiation will heal at the same time, so your health will just slowly make its way back up to maximum without you have to worry too much about it. So kind of a convenience thing, I think, but convenient. I like it. So, the things that have changed on legendary weapons, there's quite a few on here. It's basically a series of buffs to most things. It's quite cool. So, Assassins is damage versus humans. That's been buffed from plus 10% to plus 50%. So, again, it's a situational thing. It's only good against one type of enemies, but it'll do much more damage than it used to against them now. So, very, very cool. Berserkers, you no longer get a damage debuff, and this is consistent for all of the things that give you damage debuffs, I think. When resistance is 80 or higher. The damage buff, when damage resistance is between 1 and 60, has been slightly reduced. So that's one of the only, technically, nerfs there, but the debuff is removed altogether. So they're offset a little bit. I don't think Berserkers is going to become any more popular than it currently is as a result of this. I think most people would rather have what damage resistance they can. If you happen to have a Berserker's piece, then getting a little, in and amongst the rest of your set, then getting a little boost from not having the debuff and will be nice, I suppose. So, yeah, cool. Exterminators is Mirelurks and Bugs, and that's been boosted from 30% bonus to 50%. Ghoul Slayers is against ghouls, funnily enough, and that's been boosted from 30 to 50%. Hunters, which is versus animals, is doing now 50% again instead of 30%. And Mutants is getting an updated functionality. So damage now increases by 5% per mutation that affects the character, up to 25%. So functionally, this is much the same as Junkies, in that you get a boost up to 5 addictions with Junkies, you get a boost in damage up to 5 mutations with Mutants, except it doesn't actually go quite as far as Junkies, because Junkies can boost you up to 50%, whereas Mutants only 25%. So still, makes Mutants considerably more valuable than it used to be, but I'm thinking maybe that might need a nudge to make it a bit more of a viable option. I'm thinking it's still not quite on a par with some of the other options. Mutant Slayers. As with the previous Slayers mods, this one is Super Mutants, and it will get a buff from 30% to 50% damage increase. So we have another debuff removed on Nocturnal, which honestly, I thought they'd take this one out altogether, but no, they haven't. The nighttime damage buff has been increased, and it no longer does less damage in the day. So daytime, it's just a standard weapon. Nighttime, it does even more damage. Still not a great one, but not as bad as it was. Suppressors. Damage reduction applied to the target has been buffed from 20% for 3 seconds to 25% for 5 seconds. So that's a reduction in their damage output as opposed to their resistance to damage. But they will basically be doing less damage for longer to make it a little bit more effective. Again, still don't think it's going to be the most desirable, but it's better than it was, especially if you're already carrying around a weapon with that particular effect on it. Troubleshooters is now going to do 50% against robots, and Zealots will do 50% against Scorch, consistent with the previous types of Slayer mod. So on the 2nd star, Bashers will now be doing slightly more damage when you hit with the stock, or whatever it may be on your gun. That will be doing 50% extra damage rather than 40. Hitman's is getting a little buff from 10% extra damage while aiming to 25% extra damage while aiming, so that's going to be a lot nicer to have. That's actually quite a useful little nudge up in your abilities. And it's also in line with... what was the other one we looked at earlier? The steady one, which is 25% buff if you're standing still. So either of those will be much nicer to have, I think. For those who tend to free aim and ADS, I think Hitman's has just got a lot more viable, which is definitely one I like. Enhanced VATS means you've got a slightly better chance to hit when you are firing in VATS. Now that chance to hit is even bigger, at 50% instead of 33%. And the legendary attribute changes for armor are quite simple. Assassins now reduces damage taken from all humans by 15%. Not sure what it was before, but it's either it was ignoring some humans or the number was different, but either way, there's the change. And for Nocturnal, they've removed the daytime debuff, and damage increase is now 10% per piece of Nocturnal armor during daytime. I'm guessing that's a slight buff as well, going from the other one, but I haven't looked into that in forever and a day for the usual obvious reasons. But either way, definitely an improvement. So that's the biggest chunk of information regarding new stuff in here. There's a couple of other things we're going to have a quick look at as well, though, before we get to the bug fixes. So, Season 5, KD Inkwell, and Escape from the 42nd Century. So this is the new season. Not going to go through this in too much detail because we've established by now how all this works. It's basically the same, another 100 ranks to climb. There are new challenges, new rewards. I've gone over all that in a previous video that I'll have linked somewhere in the corner, I have no doubt, so do check that one out. But the big new changes are the unlimited rank ups, something we've been asking for since the first season, in fact, which is if you finish the 100 ranks, you can carry on completing daily and weekly challenges in return for new rewards beyond rank 100. These are less dramatic than the earlier rewards, but they're nice things to have. So you basically get repeatable ranks after rank 100. Ranks past 100 award rewards like perk card packs, legendary crafting components, so presumably modules and cores, which is awesome. Consumables, in-game items, atoms, and more. So I think the atoms will be welcome, because obviously we know Seasons did drop the amount of available atoms, for free anyway. So having some extras will be nice. Legendary crafting components in particular will be good for those who play the most. I mean, you can get a little boost on via the Seasons, as well as by completing events, which is cool. And perk card packs, well, you know, generally I think most people who are completing early probably don't need that many perk card packs, but they do translate to perk coins, so if you're still working towards ranking up those legendary perks, you'll be able to do that a little faster, which is definitely handy as well. And this will be updated on the score bar in the top right corner when you have a look at either the map or the scoreboard, so you'll be able to see what your next reward is going to be, rather than as per usual where you can see everything. So that's how you'll keep track of that. So, new vendor arriving, Minerva. So we've talked about this a little bit, and we haven't gone through it in a great deal of detail, but the basic gist of it is we have a shiny new Blue Ridge caravan merchant called Minerva, and she's ready to trade a selection of coveted item plans in exchange for your gold bullion. So it's another place for you to spend your bullion. The key thing about this is some of the daily ops plans will be available on a rotating basis from her. So for those who don't really want to pursue daily ops for whatever reason, then you will still have your opportunities to pick those rewards up in return for bullion instead. And it kind of gives a little bit more that you can spend bullion on if you happen to have run out of things already. So she'll arrive doing two events, Minerva's Emporium and Minerva's Big Sale. Basically the way this is going to work out is that she'll be there all the time, but the nature of what she's selling will change and the price she's selling it at, depending on the time of week. So Monday to Wednesday, Minerva's Emporium, and Minerva's Big Sale will be Thursday to Monday. So the items she has available will rotate regularly. Her wares include gold bullion plans that are normally only available from other vendors, so this is just an option to get those, and generally plans from daily ops, which are the really interesting things, I think, as regards this, because the other stuff's available elsewhere anyway. The exception being, of course, that Minerva might have it at a lower price compared to the other vendors, so that's something you may want to factor in. So, Minerva's no slouch when it comes to making sales. She wants your business and she's offering discounts on gold bullion plans so that you buy directly from her. When she arrives, she'll set up shop at either Fort Atlas, Foundation, or the Crater. Now, I've only seen her at Foundation so far, but she sets up just outside the front gate, quite close to where you arrive when you fast travel. I would expect it's the same thing at the other two locations as well. As I say, I haven't checked yet, but I would imagine so. And if that's the case, obviously, those are free fast travels as well, so you do have to go looking for her. On the other hand, it doesn't cost you anything to do that, and you should arrive pretty close to where she is, so That should be fine. I mean, it'd be nice if she was in the one consistent spot, but she's a caravan vendor, so for character purposes, it makes sense that she travels between settlements, I think. But that's pretty cool. So yeah, I think getting discounts and the potential to get daily ops plans are the big thing for Minerva. Obviously, take a little look, maybe compare what she's got and the prices. You can double check for yourself easily enough if you want to hop between, say, Minerva and Regs. She changes on a day-by-day basis, so she will be there when you come back, unless you go away over the evening, I suppose. But yeah, I think that's going to be a nice little addition. I think we'll have to get used to exactly how it works, or at least I will anyway, before I form a firm opinion. But particularly grabbing those daily ops plans that you might have missed, or the ones that just don't seem to want to drop, because I think we all know how that feels. In that regard, I think it'll be nice. I'm definitely looking forward to having access to this from that. So, last but not least, a couple of very, very cool things. Additional design updates. Mentioned before, we're having some wallet changes. So the max cap limit has been increased from 30,000 to 40,000. Not going to make a great deal of difference. Might push some prices up a little bit in game. Most of us who can hit 30,000 will hit 40,000 a couple of days later at most anyway, so no biggie either way. The biggest impact it will have is giving you more room to maneuver around the aristocrats effect. That way, instead of having a 1,000 margin to maintain your maximum damage output, or damage resistance if it's armor, you'll have an 11,000 cap margin, which means you can spend a few if you want to. Maybe run out of ballistic fiber, that's something I run out of a lot, and you're running over to the White Springs to buy that. You can do that without fear of losing your damage buff, basically, which is the idea, I think. That's really what the biggest change is going to be here, I think. So, gold bullion, the daily vendor limit, has been increased from 200 to 400, which means you can turn in twice as many treasury notes per day in order to get bullion back. And the max player cap for bullion has been doubled as well, so you can carry twice as much around with you if you want. Useful note, which you probably knew anyway, there's no limit to how many treasury notes you can carry around, so it's not like there's kind of a limit, it just slows you down a bit, really. But if you need to, you can always carry the treasury notes around. So, scrip. The daily vendor limit for scrip has been increased from 150 to 300, so we can turn in twice as many scrap legendaries and get scrip for them. And you can also carry around, this is big, 5 times as much scrip on your person as you could previously. Instead of 1,000, it is now 5,000, so that's great. Should mean that when you're grinding out those legendaries for the challenges, or you're running Uranium Fever a lot and you've got loads of stuff you don't want, you should have much more facility to get rid of it. You won't wind up over-encumbered with just your inventory cluttered up with stuff that you just don't want as much, because you'll be able to shift it faster. Which is going to be nice. I think in terms of a quality of life change, in terms of just not having so much rubbish in the inventory, that's really what I'm happy about, more than the actual script themselves. So very, very cool there, I think. So Meat Week is returning. That will be August 17th to the 23rd, which is the usual deal with that one. It usually does come around in August, September time. And we have got 5 new plans available on top of everything that is already available from that event. So we have the Pepper Shaker, which is our minigun cum shotgun thing, which is the new heavy weapon that is being added. A grocery cart grill. So that's kind of a bicycle with a basket on the front of it that's a grill. It's fun, and I quite like it. What it does make me think, though, is we really do need some complete overhaul type skins like this for weapons stations and armor stations, because we've got a few color-based ones, but they're still basically the same as they always have been since the beginning of Fallout 4. So having some new styles and new look to them would be really, really nice, I think, there. But nonetheless, the grocery cart's nice to have as well. So there's a plastic fruit wreath that you can stick on your wall. There's a plastic fruit bowl that you can put around inside your camp if you want, which doesn't sound like a great deal of excitement, but for those who really like decorating their camps, and the same applies to the decoy duck set here as well, it's extra stuff to have lying around to make your place look a little bit more lived in and homely. So again, it's not that big a deal, but I'm sort of disproportionately excited to have more clutter. I guess I'm saying, but very, very cool nonetheless. So, speaking of camps, here's a very cool thing. Additional camp slots and special loadouts. I have been crying out particularly for the camp slots, but special loadouts too, since right after the last update went live, really. Within a few weeks, anyway. So we can now purchase some extra camp slots and some extra special loadouts if you want to run around with more different builds, mix up your playstyle a bit, or have some more camps because you just can't bear to tear down that one that you really liked, or those two that you really liked as it is now. So you can now acquire additional camp slots and special loadouts from the Atomic Shop. They did say way before that special loadouts were going to be that way, and somewhere out in the ether, not very clearly, they also did say the same thing about camp slots, but later. Not really surprising given that that's how special loadouts are working, but you can pick these up from the Atomic Shop in addition to the 2 that you have by default. So you can unlock an additional 3 camp slots for a total of 5, and they are priced at 1,000 atoms per unlock. So I'm sure everybody's going to have their own opinion on whether or not 1,000 atoms per unlock is reasonable. It hasn't specified here whether or not... that's cool. So those are account-wide from the look of this. Slots and loadouts unlocked from the Atomic Shop available for all current and future characters. So it's account-wide, which is good. So it's just a one-off thing. You don't have to repeat it. That's great. In terms of the limit of 5, I can't remember where I read this, because I read way too much of this stuff. But basically, the reason for it is to do with the database and the amount of information that's stored. Whether that means the amount of information that I have to store player side or server side, I don't know. But either way, every single item in a camp, for example, has to be detailed and saved not only what the item is, but where it is and how it works in relation to the stuff around it, so that it can be replaced in the game, especially if you're blueprinting. But obviously, that means there's a heck of a lot of information that has to be saved for each camp. So they don't want to have too many slots and basically end up having to store more and more information. And if it is player side, they haven't said, but that would just mean even more info clogging up your hard drive. So, you know, this is why the limit is where it is anyway, if you were wondering. As for special loadouts, this is cool. Add an additional 13 if you like, for a total of 15. No idea why they picked that number, but it's plenty high enough. They are priced at 500 atoms per unlock. Interesting. Again, account-wide, so very, very cool. Interesting that it's a different price. I'm a little surprised. I don't really have an opinion on this yet, to be honest. But probably because there's more of them is why it's less, I guess. But yeah, 15 loadout slots total. How many different builds do you want on one character? That's more than enough. That's pretty awesome. I'd call that reasonably generous myself. I think that's very, very cool. And also, it's much less information to store than a camp is, so there's that. But, as I say, those are account-wide, so available for all current and future characters and on the unlocking account. That was a mouthful of a sentence. So yeah, very, very cool. Both slots and loadouts are found in the account category of the Atomic Shop, so you might have to dig a bit when you're in the Atomic Shop to find it, but they're there. Or they will be, well, possibly even by now. It depends how long it's taken them to update the server. We will see. Either way, it should be live this evening. So, improvements and bug fixes. As per usual with this, I'm going to go through it as quickly as I can, and I will do a load of jump cuts and cut out the stuff that's not particularly interesting. If you really want to deep dive into this, strongly recommend you do. As usual, patch notes will be linked down below the video, so do check them out. But I'm going to try and pick out some of the most interesting stuff. So, armor and power armor, that's going to be interesting. Fix an issue that could cause a server not responding error when being saved by life-saving armor. Okay. Backpacks. Address an issue where the player could wear a backpack or use regular armor while in power armor. Bit of an exploit getting fixed there, but that's good. Address an issue where players may lose a fusion core when entering and exiting power armor. Nice. Good to have that fixed. A Nuka Dark Power Armor paint now changes the name of the power armor pieces when applied, so that's just a visual thing. The Yukon 5 paint now displays on the left arm and leg when in the inspect and transfer menus for T45. Again, very specific. Fix an issue where power armor pieces with 100 plus condition would not appear in the modify menu of a workbench unless they were attached to a chassis. Interesting. Duplicated power armor pieces with the super duper perk no longer causes multiple armor pieces to be equipped simultaneously. So this is legitimately duplicated stuff as opposed to exploited. So that's good. So there's an art and graphics change here that's interesting. The Vault Fireplace. They fixed an issue where the Vault Fireplace was not casting light, so that should look a little cooler in your camp if you're using that. Camp and workshop stuff. We have camp slots. Vendor and shelter icons now remain grayed out while switching active camp slots. Very, very specific. And the fertilizer producer. Brahmin spawned by the fertilizer producer can no longer be killed by camp owners, so you can no longer kill your own Brahmin. Okay, that's some oddly specific stuff. So for challenges, the Meteoric Sword and Plasma Cutter now correctly count towards Kill Scorched with a Sword challenge. That's, again, a couple of specific things that were probably frustrating some people if they were using those. A nice little fix. And a tweak to daily ops. Enemy Blood Eagles with Power Fists will no longer have the Icebreaker Power Fist paint applied to their weapons. I didn't notice that one. Mind you, it's a hard thing to spot, but they should have generic ones as opposed to having a Power Armor paint on there. That's an odd little bug, but cool nonetheless. So, ceiling lamps. The stained glass Nuka-Cola ceiling lamps no longer emit light in an unnatural direction. Fusion cores. Being hit by a freezer floater attack now drains fusion cores the correct amount. So, hedge fences. Not sure about these ones, not quite sure which ones these refer to, so I'm guessing I don't have them. But they've changed the building requirements to wood instead of concrete. They've fixed an issue where they could float, and they've improved the snapping behaviour of them. I don't know if this is the new stone ones that were there recently, or if there's something new that's going to appear. But either way, very, very cool. Those should be a bit more reliable. The hot tub no longer shares its build limit with the fire pit. That's cool. So you can have both, a bit more flexibly. And players can now soak in the hot tub with a friend, which you should have been able to do anyway, as far as I'm aware. But I guess that was occasionally bugging out. Vendor signs, the ones that we got a while ago from the Atomic Shop that say like legendary weapons for sale, that sort of stuff. Those will now be under the floor decor tab rather than the wall decor tab. And apparently those were supposed to be there anyway, but they weren't. So if you've lost them and you can't find them, that is why. They are now under floor decor, so that's useful to know about. Train set no longer continues to play sounds after the power is removed. I'm sure that will be appreciated by people with those. They do sometimes make a slightly annoying noise. A lot of the things that make noise get annoying after a while, so being able to switch them off is nice. They've adjusted the lighting range on the wood branch chandelier, and the lights no longer appear bright red when they are not powered, so that should look a little better too. So we have some localization changes, which may or may not be relevant to some of you. Do pursue if you are interested. A couple of NPC changes. Decapitated NPCs no longer spawn with their heads when players check their inventories. It was just a weird little glitch that was a visual thing and was a little bit odd to see, so that's nice. Damage numbers were now present when explosives are used to kill creatures, which presumably means grenades more than anything, more than explosive weapons, but that's cool. Definitely handy if you want to know how much damage your grenades are actually doing. Fix an issue where mole miners would attack with melee despite having ranged weapons. Okay, so that should make them a little bit more diverse in combat. And players can now headshot the Mothman outside of that. Interesting. I didn't realise that shooting him in the head wasn't actually doing any extra damage before, but good to know. Nice to know that's been fixed. That will definitely affect me. So, perks, always interesting. Class Freak, fix an issue where it would not reduce negative effects as expected. So, hopefully that'll mean a little reduction in debuffs for people. I suspect many people probably didn't even notice that was the case. So, maybe you get a nice little, kind of almost a buff, effectively, in a backhanded sort of way. So, that's cool. Dodgy now correctly consumes AP on each consecutive hit. Damn it. I didn't know that it wasn't doing that, but it does mean it's going to be... The trade-off for Dodgy is going to be that much more enhanced. So, good to know about. You might find your AP dropping even faster if you're a Dodgy user like me. Electric Absorption now works with laser-type weapons. So, for some reason, apparently it wasn't always doing so. Now you should even more reliably see your fusion cores getting recharged. And Born Survivor... They fixed an issue where the perk would activate after a player character died. I don't know too much about the Born Survivor perk, so I'm not sure what the ins and outs of that one are, but it should be activating at the right time and not activating at the wrong times anymore, which is cool. Primal Cuts. Enemy corpses are no longer disintegrated when using plasma or laser weapons, so you should be able to pick up your prime meat and stuff like that from a bit more easily. And if you're doing the property rights quest, the objective marker will no longer fail to appear if you've already entered the makeshift vault before speaking to Knight Shin about the raiders. There's a couple of UI changes here that are definitely cool to have. Favorites menu. Fix an issue causing the favorites wheel to occasionally reset on login. So I've run into this a few times. I find stuff disappearing from my favorites menu when I log back into the game after whatever period of time. And it's kind of an aggravating thing, especially if you don't notice until you're in combat. So good to have that fixed. The map should now update faster when items are added or removed from a vendor. That's nice. A minor thing, but definitely nice. And the backgrounds for the trade and transfer window in the Pip-Boy are now aligned with the items list. Interesting. Again, a bit specific. And claimed items from the scoreboard are now added to the new tab in the Pip-Boy. Those items that actually appear there anyway, so that makes it a bit easier to find them if you're grabbing them whilst you're playing. So we have a few weapon changes. They addressed an issue where players could become stuck in an aim position when sprinting, aiming and firing after the character enters a relaxed state. So basically, if you hit the right combination of sprinting, aiming and firing, then your weapon stays up rather than dropping back to the relaxed position. Sometimes you just tap the button again and it drops back, but that shouldn't happen at all anymore, so that's cool. Fusion and plasma cores are now correctly consumed if they are stored before being fired. Not quite sure how that pans out, but it's a thing. Cryolator can no longer freeze players who are not engaged in PvP combat, so it's effectively removing friendly fire from it if you are not actively engaging in PvP. So that also eliminates its use as a griefing mechanic, which is a griefing mechanism, I should say. Calling it mechanic gives it undue credibility. But yeah, those who have run into issues with the cryolator, with people cryolating them as a griefing behavior, shouldn't have too much issue with that anymore because it just won't work, which is cool. Definitely a welcome change for at least one person I can think of, so yeah, that's good. Gamma Gun now does correct damage when not using a charging mod. Gauss Pistol, when you swap to that and quickly charge, it no longer prevents it from firing, which should make weapon swapping to a Gauss Pistol much more efficient, which is nice for those who use one. Addressed an issue where magazine sizes could be swapped with heavy weapon magazines. So this is probably a case where when you switch very quickly between guns, you suddenly find you've got much more ammo in the clip than you're supposed to have, and you can't reload until you get below the amount you're supposed to have. It's not the end of the world, that bug, but it was a bit weird and jarring, and a temporary unintended advantage, so not surprised to see that one come out. Firing is no longer interrupted when aiming down sights in third-person view with scoped automatic weapons. Okay. Power Fist and Boxing Gloves can properly receive eligible Tier 2 Legendary mods. Didn't know that was an issue, but it's good timing for that fix. Baseball bats and sledgehammers can now correctly change names when mods are applied. And extra flame jets now display the correct mod description on the shish kebab. AMS headquarters. Players can no longer get stuck in an elevator. That's good, because I'm pretty sure that figures in the upcoming questline. They fixed the spot in the Valley Galleria where players could work out of the world. Yikes, I have no idea where that might have been, but glad to see I'm not going to find that by accident anymore. And last but not least, the White Spring Bunker. Papers inside the bunker have been updated to say that thistles give flux when nuked. So, a tiny little thing, but very cool and true. So, that is, as expected, very, very long. So, obviously we've touched on most of these changes before. There's some good bug fixes in here, some specifics that I think will relate to different people. As I say, I haven't gone over everything in this video because it's more than long enough already. So if you do want to check out a few more, links down below. Again, if you want to read the patch notes yourself as well. But yeah, very excited to get stuck into the legendary crafting, trying that out, and having 15 perk loadout slots. Wasn't expecting that particular number. I thought we might get, 5, 8, something like that, maybe 10 at tops. But 15 is awesome. Again, don't have much feeling on the prices yet. Glad that they are account-wide as opposed to having to rebuy for every character. That would be annoying. But yeah, they've come down on the right side on that, so that's very, very cool. And of course, we've got the new season starting today, so we're going to be jumping into that, pursuing the challenges and stuff going forward. So, there we go. Lots to get stuck into. Brand new quests, brand new seasons, new vendors, new opportunities, increased opportunities to get things that were often locked out by RNG in the past. So, a lot of RNG improvements, both direct through legendary crafting and through other things going on here as well, which is really, really nice for this update. I'm very, very excited for it. Looking forward to playing it later on today. Speaking of, if you get the chance, do join us for live streams this week. We've got hopefully jumping into the start of Steel Rain this evening. I'm very much looking forward to that. And on Friday, I will be playing some 76 with Mad Queen and probably a few others from the sound of things as well. So we should be running around causing havoc and having fun there. So I do hope you'll join us for that one. And beyond that, I will say a massive thank you very much for watching. I do hope you found this useful and informative. If you did, please do consider dropping subs and likes for me. It is hugely appreciated. Social media links, the merch store, and channel memberships are all available down below the video as well if you want to support the channel in that way. It hugely helps out, so massive, massive thank yous to everybody who's done that already. I very, very much appreciate it. And as I say, do grab those live streams as well if you get the chance. I hope to see you there. But for now, thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to speaking to you all very, very soon.